How are we doing, fantasy people? Welcome back to the third episode of the Care Bear Fantasy Football Weekly Recap. Today, as usual, we're going to dive into scores, top players, bottom players, missed starts, some injury news, our league board, and this week we did have no trades to review, and we are going to skip some previous trade reviews. Just give it another week to simmer. But before all that, let's get into a week 3 recap against around the league. Thursday night, we kicked off with a classic AFC North rivalry match. The Steelers playing the Browns. As usual, the Browns playing with a new QB, just like they have for the past 20 years. But Cleveland did prevail, winning 29-17. The Steelers' lackluster offense was almost useless, though they put up some points, and one of the only highlights of the night for them was a George Pickens Odell-like catch, thanks to Mitch Trubisky's bad ball placement. As for the Browns, we are highlighting a couple guys fantasy-wise. Amari Cooper, David Njoku, and Nick Chubb could not be stopped. They had 23, 24, and 17 fantasy points respectively. Sunday morning, we kicked off. We had the Bears winning their second game of the year. 2-1 to start the year. Who would have thought? They beat the Houston Texans 23-20. Justin Fields, 3 games, does not have 300 passing yards yet. Is that a concern? Who knows? But they are winning games, so that is all that really matters. We do have to mention David Montgomery went down early. Juice Herbert took over in the backfield, and he carried this team to a win. He was this week's RB1 with 31 points. He had 160 yards and a touchdown. As for Houston, the hype train has arrived. Dameon Pierce finally showing that preseason hype as he put up a touchdown and had 18 fantasy points. He is looking like the clear-cut RB1 in Houston. So much for Sexy Rexy season. Next, we had Vegas playing Tennessee in two teams who went to playoffs last year, both looking for their first wins of the season in week 3. That was tough, but it was a 24-22 win for the Titans coming back from that terrible loss last Thursday. And we finally say hello to Derrick Henry. He scored 25 points while we had a Las Vegas receiver put up 30. It was not Devontae. Mac Hollins, seemingly out of nowhere, filling in for Hunter Renfrow, put up 8 catches, 160, and a touchdown. Again, he had 30 points. He was this week's receiver too. He's out on the waivers. Go ahead and grab him. Then in this week's upset of the week, we had the Colts beat the Chiefs 20-17. Yes, the Colts, who last week were trounced by the Jags 24-0, came out, beat the Chiefs 20-17. This game had not much fantasy news. I mean, Travis Kelce, he played. Juju, he popped out, he had like 14. Michael Pittman, he had like 15, here and there, everything going around. Jelani Woods, rookie tight end, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. Is that repeatable? Probably not, but that he had 15 points. We will mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Is he falling back to earth? 7 carries, 0 yards, though he did have a touchdown. How does that make sense? No one knows. Also, he chipped in 5 catches for 40 for a total of 15 points, but how long can he keep up scoring touchdowns? Because without that touchdown, that is only 9 points, and if you're using him as an RB1 or 2, that is not what you want to see. This week's game of the week, Dolphins-Bills, big matchup going into the week. AFC rivalry going on here in what should be expected 1 and 2 from that division. This game, let me just read off some metrics, and you tell me who the winner was. The Bills, 90 plays, Dolphins 39. The Bills, 500 total yards. The Dolphins, 200. The Bills, 41 minutes of possession. The Dolphins, only 19. Bills won, right? Wrong. All those stats in favor of the Bills, they still lost 19-21 in a game where the starting QB, Tua, left seemingly unable to walk. That man looked like he was ready to grab the keys after a night out at the bar. He came back into the game. Who knows? Maybe he skipped concussion protocol, but the injury report is saying back. He managed to, game manage his way to a win. He didn't have an amazing stat line, but he did have 13 for 18, a touchdown, no picks. Nothing crazy, nothing bad. Just making enough to win. As Waddle had another 100-yard game. Meanwhile, in Buffalo, Josh Allen did Josh Allen things. Stephon Diggs only 7 for 70, 14 points, respectable still. We will mention Devin Singletary, 9 catches. Is that repeatable in Buffalo? Is he going to take that backfield over and just be the sole RB1? We'll see what Zach Moss and James Cook have to say about that. Next, Minnesota versus Detroit NFC North matchup. It was all but wrapped up in favor of Detroit until Dan Campbell, everyone's favorite coach, decided to take a field goal deep. With only a minute left, they missed. And Captain Kirk, 1 minute, way too much time. It's not Monday night. You know he's making that comeback. He hit a wide open KJ Osborne for the win. And this was a quiet game for the stars. DeAndre Swift, Justin Jefferson, not much production though. Jamal Williams, 25 fantasy points. He's looking at lead back duties for a couple weeks here as DeAndre Swift is dealing with both a shoulder and ankle injury. Also, KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen, the receivers 2 and 3 on the Vikings, not Justin Jefferson. They both had 18 points, 36 for them combined, while Jefferson only had 4. Jefferson was being locked up by Jeff Okudah. That's kind of weird. Is Justin Jefferson a fluke? Probably not, but the year goes on. We have Baltimore beating the Patriots 37-26 as Lamar had another pay-me game. 5 total touchdowns, over 300 yards. His favorite target, Mark Andrews, you know the name, tight end 1 for 2 weeks in a row now. Also, Lamar, QB1 2 weeks in a row. Mark Andrews, 29 points, and the Patriots looked pretty lackluster. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson scored, Damian Harris scored, Devontae Parker, he had like 20 fantasy points, but Mac Jones, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, all before leaving the game on what looked like a terrible ankle injury. That man was crying. He was jumping, hobbling to the locker room. He's expected to be out for a couple weeks here. The Bengals finally got their first win of the season against the Jets as Tyler Boyd had 20 points to lead the way for the Bengals as the studs Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase fell into the background, while Joe Flacco, in what should be his last week as the starting QB for the Jets this season, put up another 50-attempt game in a losing effort. We'll see how that affects the pass catchers for the Jets, such as Conklin, Garrett Wilson, and Elijah Moore. We expect to see Elijah Moore go up as Zach Wilson and him had a great report last year. But we'll miss old man Joe. Maybe he comes back. Zach Wilson does have a tendency to get hurt. On to the Eagles-Commander game. Philly Nation, what are we saying? Woo, 24-8, absolute domination. Jalen Hurts, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Devonta Smith, not A.J. Brown, but A.J. Brown got his first touchdown this year. Devonta Smith, 8 catches, 170, and a touchdown. He was this week's receiver 1 with a score at 31. Let me just put it out there. No one owns this guy. Let's get on the waivers, guys. Meanwhile, that defense looked stellar. 9 sacks. They got a fumble recovery. The Commanders were a joke on offense that game. They had basically no offense up until the end of the game where they got a last-second touchdown, but too little, too late. 24-8 was the score in that one. Saints-Panthers, mid. Baker, he pulled out a 22-14 win as the only real offensive sighting there for the Panthers was a 67-yard screen pass to Laviska Shenault. Hello once again 2 years ago. This guy was a big name in fantasy, and here he is back again. He had 2 catches for 90 and a touchdown. Is that repeatable? Probably not. He is, I believe, the receiver 3 or 4 on that team, so who knows how much we'll see out of him. Meanwhile, the Saints, Alvin Kamara. Where is he? Who knows? But Chris Olave showed out for the Saints. He had 9 catches for 150 yards. That's a nice looking rookie for the year and for years to come. On to Duval County as the Jags beat an AFC favorite Chargers 38-10. There is an asterisk on that game as Justin Herbert was playing with a broken rib cartilage. The Jags had plenty of fantasy relevant players though. J-Rob, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Trevor Lawrence all had over 19 fantasy points. While the Chargers, not much going on there fantasy-wise. Josh Palmer did have 16. That was about it for the Chargers as Austin Eckler, what was supposed to be a top 3, maybe top 5, depending on how you rank him, running back this year, only put up about 12 points. He had 8 catches, 40 yards, and then 5 rushing attempts. Not what you want to see. Only 13 touches for what was supposed to be RB3. What are we doing, LA? He was sitting in a lot of that game, helping out with the protection on Justin Herbert. They did not want him to get hit with those ribs. Also, their all-pro left tackle is out for the year with a torn bicep, so that blocking could be a big storyline for the rest of the season for the Chargers. On to the Cardinals-Rams. We saw LA win 20-12. It was Call of Duty beta weekend. Kyler Murray, he wasn't ready to play. He was playing Call of Duty all weekend, let's be honest here. LA won 20-12 in a game that saw Cooper Kupp only catch 4 balls. No receiving touchdown, but he still got on the board as he got a rushing touchdown, the first of his career. Meanwhile, Cam Akers looking like he's taking over that backfield. We'll still have to see. He did have a goal line fumble, and we do know that coaches in the NFL do not like fumbling from running backs, so maybe that puts a damper on the production, but we don't know. And as for the Cardinals, Marquise Brown, 14 catches. 14. And he had 140 yards to go with it. That is 28 points for the man. We'll see how he does once DeAndre Hopkins gets back in a couple weeks. On the next game, Falcons-Seahawks, mid. Falcons got their first win, 27-23. Cordarrelle Patterson had 140 on the ground and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts, welcome to the fantasy world, my friend. Where have you been after 2 straight 3.9 point games? He had 5 catches for 90 yards. Still not getting to that end zone like we want to see, but 14 points from the tight end spot is very respectable. While for Seattle, DK Metcalf finally showed up this year, 19 points. On to America's Game of the Week. GOAT battle. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Tampa Bay, Green Bay. Big scoring game, right? Wrong. There's no receivers on either team. 14-12, Green Bay. Snooze fest. Romeo Doubs and Russell Gage were our top fantasy performers here. What are we saying? Doubs had 21. Gage had 27. We'll see how that turns out as players come back from injury, though Doubs may be someone to look out for the rest of the year. There's a lot of stuff coming out of the Packers camp saying he may be receiver 1. Sunday night, we had another snooze fest. Bronco Country, let's ride. They get a dub over Jimmy G and the Niners, 11-10. That's a weird score. Jimmy G pulled the Dan Orlovsky. He ran out the back of the end zone at the 1, taking the shotgun snap. And besides that, no fantasy relevance. Besides Courtland Sutton and the Denver defense, what are we saying? Courtland Sutton had 18. The Denver defense had 17. That is not good for fantasy when a defense is one of your top scorers. Monday night, Giants 2-0. Can they be the 3rd team to stay undefeated? They were not. The Cowgirls beat them 23-16. Saquon, he's still back, 24 points. I believe he is the RB1 on the season. CeeDee Lamb, also 24 points with a clutch one-handed touchdown late in the game, though he could have had a lot more. He dropped a wide-open deep ball touchdown early on, but he made up for it. And again, Tony Pollard is showing us all why he should be the RB1 in Dallas. He looks absolutely explosive. Whereas Jerry Jones is going to force Zeke play as he paid him, so he's going to make him play. On to points this week. We have to address week 3 shit king, and actually from our community board, we have someone calling it out. Dan would just like to say, Ryan is shit king. Lol. Tough game for Ryan. He was our lowest scorer 2 weeks in a row. This week he had 83.8. That is this year's lowest score. We'll see if there's any improvements on that, but as for now, that is our lowest score. He had multiple single-digit scores. Opposite that was Bailey. His first time as top scorer this week had 162, though Reggie still has this year's highest score at 186 in week 2. This week's blowout was a 24-point differential where Tommy beat the shit king. And the closest game was a game between myself and Reggie, a 9-point game, 154-145. Our closest game thus far is still Ryan beating Andrew by only 3 points week 1. Other games, we saw Bailey beating Andrew 162-147. Andrew is 0-3. Bailey is 3-0. And then we had Johnny beating Jews 127-106. Jews 0-3. 2 teams without a win and only 1 team left undefeated. We'll see how that shakes up next week. On top players, QB1, 2 weeks in a row. Ravens, pay the man. Lamar Jackson. He's playing at an MVP level. He is running away right now. Multiple. God damn. Lamar Jackson, he is right now the top player in fantasy. He can't be stopped. He had 39 points. Other names to mention at the QB spot: Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, all over 25. RB1. This is a name that's going to shock. Khalil Juice Herbert, 31. Unowned in our league currently. And also to mention, Derrick Henry. Like we said earlier, welcome to 2022. He had over 25. Receiver 1, we have, as the Eagles say, Skinny Batman of the Batman trio. Devonta Smith had 31. As another unowned player. What are we doing, guys? RB1 and Receiver 1 of Week 3 are both unowned in the league. That is something to behold. While Mac Hollins and Marquise Brown also had over 25 points. Tight end 1, 2 weeks in a row. Figures. QB1 has to throw to someone, and that is tight end 1, Mark Andrews, 29. The only other tight end to have over 20 was David Njoku Thursday night. Defense 1, we have tied. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Broncos laid the boom as they both had 17 points. Big stuff coming from those defenses. Now we have the exact opposite, the lows of the week. And for this, we're only looking at guys that got started. We're not looking at bench guys. We're not looking at waiver guys. We are looking at people that got started and the mistakes that we as a league made. And at our QB, we have Carson Wentz, who only had 8.6 against a stout Philadelphia defense. But close behind him was Mr. Unlimited. Russell Wilson only had 9 points, struggling out in Broncos country. At RB, we have David Montgomery with 1.1, though he was injured very early in that game, and you know we don't like injuries. So let's look at all our other single-digit scores from the running back position. We had quite a few names and quite a few top picks. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, also injured. Alvin Kamara, Javonte Williams, James Conner, playing injured. Joe Mixon, Kareem Hunt, and A.J. Dillon. Lots of top names there. Lots of concern from running backs this year. At receiver, our lowest score, DJ Moore, 2.5. It was supposed to be his breakout year. Baker Mayfield, while not a crazy upgrade from some of his past quarterbacks, an upgrade nonetheless. A lot of people saying DJ Moore, he's that guy. He just doesn't have a QB. And as we all know, receivers depend on the QB to get the ball, but he is still not looking great. Only 2.5, as we said. Other receivers under 10. Again, big names. Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas, Mike Williams, and Brandon Cooks. At tight end, Lance Thomas, surprise start from Bailey. There was some word this week that he didn't have any tight ends to pick up. Someone in the league is scooping all the tight ends, making a monopoly, someone might say. Also, under 7, we do have a little bit of a low ball for tight ends as they clearly do not score as much. Darren Waller, a projected top 4, top 5 tight end this year. Pat Freiermuth and Dawson Knox. Lastly, for the defense, we had a negative score. The Chargers had -6 going up against the explosive Jaguars. That's weird to say, but it is a new year. It is a new coach. Jaguars put the beat down on the Chargers. Like we said earlier, 38-10. Chargers left -6 points. Tough game. Now we're going to look at players who had big weeks but rode the bench. I'm going to name any players who had above 20 points on the bench, and then all the rankings that I will mention are from this week alone. So we are looking at week 3 rankings. Starting off, Reggie left Trevor Lawrence on the bench, QB4. I left Jamal Williams on the bench, RB3. Andy, 0-3, left Chris Olave and Devin Singletary on the bench. That was receiver 6 and RB4. Tommy benched Mr. CD, receiver 8. Johnny benched Amari Cooper and Tyler Boyd, receiver 7 and 12 respectively. And Jews left Cordarrelle Patterson, RB6 on the bench. He does not trust him. That is an old man. I don't trust him either. I don't blame Jews for that one. Lastly, we look at our league as a whole, as we had so many guys in the waiver wire that scored 20 or more. Devonta Smith, this week's receiver 1. Khalil Herbert, this week's RB1. Why are these guys on the waiver wire? Mac Hollins, receiver 2. You heard that. Receiver 1 and 2 are on the waiver wire. What are we doing? Russell Gage, Zay Jones, David Njoku, Romeo Dobbs, Isaiah McKenzie, Devonta Parker, and Ramondre Stevenson all had over 20 points. Let's get those waivers going. On to some injury news. We are just going to say that all of these guys are questionable, so I'm just going to run through a quick list. Chris Godwin, Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, David Montgomery. David Montgomery might be out this week. Stephon Diggs, Mike Thomas, Christian Watson, Jarvis Landry, Julio Jones, Dalvin Cook, lingering shoulder. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks healthy. Hunter Renfrow, Jacoby Myers, Keenan Allen practicing today. Good news out of there. DeAndre Swift, questionable, but is expected to miss 2 weeks, maybe 3. Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle. Onto our league board. As we said earlier, a shout out from Miss Dan, who is not in the league, but she did want to say that Ryan is the shit king, LOL. Andy said he's killing himself as one of the only teams without a win left. He is feeling it. Andy, it's all right. You'll get there, man. You've had some tough games, and if matchups went a little better, you could be 3-0 right now. Ryan, shit king, 2 weeks in a row. Whole team is tradable. Does anyone want your guys? You didn't even make triple digits this week. Yikes. And he also said, shout out to Tommy. He beat me in fantasy, and he made more in sports betting. I'm also developing alcoholism. Ryan. Tough luck, buddy. Try not to be shit king 3 weeks in a row. If you are, that is a tough scene. And for Tommy, we have this long dialogue as he does every week. Might have to start putting a word limit on this guy, but from Tommy himself. I've slammed my balls into the door jamb. I'm sorry to God for disrespecting him. Green Bay Packers, what happened? Don't get that one too much as they won. And through the love of God, titties, and America, I will win the league with my little dick. All right, Tommy. Good to hear. So that was our league board. Hopefully in the coming weeks we can get some more actual, league news on that board, like trades or whatever. But for now, we just have some dialogues from some familiar names on there. Lastly, we're going to look ahead to week 3 for fantasy and the NFL, as my little Uzi Hurts are playing Bailey's McAfrican Americans in what is expected to be our fantasy game of the week. Bailey, the only team 3-0, going up against myself 2-1. We have Juice's Team Laporte looking for their first win, going up against Tommy's Racing with Rugs. Ryan changed his team name to the worst team ever, playing against Johnny's 4 Loco for Life. And lastly, another team name change. The other 0-3 team, Andy's Shit Kings, are playing Reggie's South Memphis Tank Destroyers. Around the league on Thursday, Miami looks to stay undefeated against the Bengals, though Tua may be out. We will see what happens. Early Sunday morning in London, we see Minnesota versus New Orleans. We'll see what goes on there. The regular noon time, we have 9 games going on, and it is a whole lot of mid. Cleveland, Atlanta, mid. Washington, Dallas, mid. Seattle versus America's Lions, that's mid. But everyone loves the Lions, so we hope to see a Lions win. Tennessee versus Indy, mid. Chicago versus the Giants, mid. This week's game of the week, undefeated Philly going up against the explosive Jaguars. The Jaguars, as we said, 2-1, and they have 62 points in their last 2 games, while also holding the opponents to 10. That is a 52-point differential over 2 weeks. The Jaguars are looking like something we've never seen before. Why are the Jaguars good? We haven't seen this in a couple years back when they had Blake Bortles and Jalen Ramsey, but the Jaguars are looking good, and they are coming into Philly, hoping to end the run, but we will see what happens there. Like we said, Philly 3-0, Jaguars 2-1. Jets, Pittsburgh, Joe Flacco's last game as the starter, at least until Zach Wilson gets hurt again or possibly benched. Playing, like I said, Pittsburgh. Who knows? Maybe Mitch gets benched. It's been a tough 3 weeks for Mitch. He hasn't looked great. Obviously, that offensive line is bad, but he's just looked like a game manager. And the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, has not had a losing season. If he wants to keep that alive, he might have to make a change there. Another great game this week, Baltimore versus Buffalo. Buffalo has a lot of injuries going on, but they still are an elite team and elite defense. Lamar, we are going to see how he does against an elite defense. Is he still going to be that guy? Is he still going to show the front office that he needs to be paid? We will see. And as for Josh Allen, he's looking to bounce back after losing last week. And especially Ken Dorsey up in that coach's booth. Jesus, get that guy in a rope. He's a menace. And lastly, Chargers versus Houston in a presumed blowout game. We're expecting the Chargers to bounce back heavily after getting dismantled by the Jaguars against a very mediocre Houston Texans team. On to the 3 o'clock games, we have Arizona versus Carolina. Mid. We'll see Kyler Murray run around like a toddler. Pretty mid. New England versus Green Bay. We have a Mac Jones-less Patriots. This should be an easy Green Bay win, as New England probably won't be able to do much against that good Green Bay defense. Denver versus Vegas. Broncos country technically in first in the AFC West, though they have had one of the worst offenses of the year this year. Going up against Vegas, who is looking to win their first game. They are also the last team in the NFL to not have a win at 0-3. We were expecting some big things from this team. 0-3, can they get their first win here week 4 against Denver? We will see. Sunday night, Kansas-Tampa Super Bowl rematch. GOAT, baby, GOAT. We have a top offense in the Chiefs going against a top defense in the Bucks. Who will come out top? We will see. Is Brady done? 45 years old. Can he keep going? Who knows? Lastly, Monday night, Rams 49ers. We all know how this goes every single time they meet up. Shanahan owns the Rams. And will his dominance prevail? They are looking at a lot of injuries over there in San Fran. But we all know he owns the Rams, and we will see how that goes for him on Monday night. And that is all for this Tuesday. See you next week.